挽回残火の太刀。
All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freeway, and I'm here with my Bankai amazing co-host, Kenny.
Itsuga Tensho.
And we're back. We're talking about Bleach. I did not have this on my bingo card for the 2020s at all. The fact that Bleach actually, after 10 years of being completely off air and kind of out of everyone's mind for the most part, except reminiscing on the golden age of anime where we had the big three, Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, it had completely just not been a part of my life anymore. I would casually talk about it every once in a while. But for me, Bleach just kind of was a part of my past that I enjoyed for what it was. It's definitely not the best story ever told or anything like that, but I enjoy the shit talking. I think Bleach is like the absolute best anime manga I've ever read in my life when it comes to pure shit talking and crazy one-liners. And some of the action sequences are also outrageous. But yeah, Bleach is back. Bleach is fucking back. And I just want to start off by saying Captain Commander got hoed. You can debate your grandmother, but I don't appreciate Captain Commander got hoed.
If we're gonna start there, that's probably one of my biggest gripes.
Yep.
Is that so? As people may or may not know, I've been saying this on a couple episodes, but back when Bleach first announced to come back, I started rereading Bleach because it's been a very long time since I went through Bleach. So I wanted to reread all of Bleach. I started from chapter 1. I reread it all, and then I got up to the arc that the anime is on now. And this arc I never properly finished in the manga because at that time I was just kind of done with it. Anyway, I fully read Bleach. I read it all. And then I went and I watched this season of anime. And when reading the manga, and then when also watching the anime, we'll get to some of the good, but Fraser started off with it. It's so frustrating the way they treat the characters in Bleach that aren't Ichigo.
Yes.
A lot of,
bro, they're all Jiraiya. All of them are Jiraiya.
Every character's Jiraiya. Like, this is Captain Commander, Captain General, the head captain. Like, this is the number one guy. Strong. Like, his body's the heat of the sun.
Yeah.
Nonsense, right?
Thousands of years.
He's the unstoppable captain. At one point, he said, I don't remember when he says this. I don't even remember if it's in this season or in an old season. But at one point, he says, like, do you know why I'm still Captain General, why I'm still Captain Commander? It's because there has never been a Soul Reaper born stronger than me. Like, I'm forced to stay here because there's never been anyone born stronger.
Bitches suck. Because y'all bitches suck. Like, that's why I'm still here.
So, like, it's so frustrating when you have this character, and this happens with Byakuya, with Zaraki, which they kind of retcon in this season. We'll get to that. But this happens with all these characters that aren't Ichigo, where he just gets these mysterious power-ups. Fucking Gen Ryusai is, everything we've already said, and he basically uses all of his power fighting a fucking doppelganger. Bro, not even the boss. Like, it's so corny.
It is so corny, and not only that, so I read the manga years ago, and I stopped. I literally couldn't finish the 1,000-Year Blood War arc 10 years ago when it was actually being written because I got to a point, I guess I won't say where I got to because they haven't aired that yet. So this is going to be an anime-only podcast. We're not going to talk about the manga and where, how it ends and all that because I do know what happens and like I've got...
Yeah, this is... And then when they release the next season, we'll talk about that. We're not going to talk about anything that comes after the anime season.
So this is just going to be on the 13 episodes that aired in, 2022. But yeah, I have the same gripes where I just feel like they rushed into a lot of it as far as Captain Commander is concerned. I think that a character like that who is revered as the strongest Shinigami born in the last several thousand years should not be discarded so easily, and he shouldn't blow his whole load in one episode. I feel like if Captain Commander is going to use his Bankai and also at some point lose, it shouldn't be one episode in my opinion. I just think that that's wild.
He is... Think about this, man. Like, especially this season. Like, if you consider the fact that it's been 10 years or whatever since the last season, like, we've been waiting for Captain Commander to really go off because he's never gotten a chance to go off. And what happened with Aizen, it kind of made sense, like the way it happened.
Yeah.
Like even then, I still think that he should have went off, but like I get it.
I think that they should have sealed Captain Commander against Aizen. I think Aizen should have made Wonder Wise, instead of sealing his Zanpakuto, should have sealed Captain Commander himself to make it make sense. Because in hindsight, looking at what Captain Commander's Bankai does, it doesn't make sense that he did not use that against Aizen, because there's no fucking world where Aizen could deal with that. Like, that was just too much. It was too much.
It's weird. But I don't know. It's crazy because this is like the guy. This is the guy and then it's just weird too because I won't get to that. But he's the guy. He's Captain Commander, Captain General, and then he loses to. I'm gonna call him Yahweh. I know his name's like Yahweh or whatever.
Yeah, Yahweh.
But it's clearly supposed to be based off the name Yahweh, and I don't know how to say that other name. And some of those letters aren't there. There's not a B in his name. Some of those letters aren't there.
Kenny's right. His name is spelled like YHWACH, but then when you hear them say it's like Yuhabak or something like that. So
the letter B is not there. So like
there.
His name's Yahweh, and that's what I'm calling him.
Okay, well,
and also he's like clearly based on Christianity, like the Quincy's in general, like they have a lot of crosses and shit.
Yeah,
like,
he's actually based on. I read he's based on 2 religious entities actually. So there's the Yahweh part of his name, and then there's something else. I don't remember exactly what it was. I don't know if it was Judaism or I don't think it was Buddhism, but it was something. It's 2 things together for this guy. But you are correct. He is very clearly a Messiah type character. He is very clearly based on Christianity as well.
Here's what's annoying though, right? As far as we know, as they tell the legend, like his heart beats again after 900 years, after 99 days, whatever the fuck.
He regains his sight, and after 9.
He hasn't been training. It's not like for the last 1,000 years he's been training. He just woke up, right? Yep. Can somebody explain to me how the guy that wiped the Quincy's out 1,000 years ago fucking lost to a doppelganger? Like, I don't understand.
I'm so glad you're on the same page with me, because we did not talk
about.
He did. He literally like annihilated. He fucking what is it called? He Uchiha'd them, right? Like they got Uchiha. There's only one left. Like there's fucking one left. His name is Ishta Uryu. That was it. There were no more Quincy's. I guess Ishta's dad also happened to be a fucking Quincy. And then randomly Ichigo, which we will get to that rant, because Ichigo for some strange reason is also a Quincy that they just completely threw in there at the end. It was like, all right, well, by the way, because God forbid we end the series without him being literally every single species that we've ever created. Like Ichigo has to be every single, he has to be human, Shinigami, Hollow, and now Quincy, half a Rancor, half Fullbringer. Like he is literally everything, and that's a rant in itself. But
there's a power, he's got it.
They got wiped out completely by a guy.
That's why Ichigo can beat Goku. Because if Ichigo were to fight Goku, you'd find out that Ichigo's a Saiyan.
He would grow a tail in the middle of the fight. There would be a tail in the middle of that fight. There would be a fucking tail that comes out of nowhere, and then there'd be a full moon too. And it's just,
and then he would turn into like an Uzuru Hollow.
Oh, absolutely. Someone would blow a hole in his chest, like Goku would spirit bomb his chest and think that the fight's over, and then he'd get up and the white would take over, and it would be a whole rant. I am just, so don't get us wrong. We both like Bleach. Like it is actually.
And the season was good. It was really fun to watch. The animation is beautiful. Like the animation looks crazy. The effects, everything. Like it was sick. The characters are sick. I love the character designs, the art, the animation, and it's a really fun watch. That said, there are what flaws. I would consider plot holes.
Yep, definitely plot holes, definitely flaws.
Just some nonsense.
Yeah, Bleach is very enjoyable. I put it in the category, like I said, it's not the best story ever told, but we don't really expect that from it because we knew very early on. You know what? To further that point, let me just say this. Every episode of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc that aired so far was 5 chapters of the manga, just by the way. So for people who don't know,
I was confused, by the way, because I didn't watch the anime as it was airing. Obviously, as everybody knows me, I waited until it was done. Having finished the manga, though, like I wasn't worried about seeing something. So I saw what the last episode was, and I was like, how the hell did they get there? I was like, that's so far. Like, how did they get there in 12? At the time, I thought 12, but even 13. I was like, man, they must have covered a lot of content per episode.
Yeah, so what they did is they adapted around 64 chapters into Core 1. And so 13 episodes are 64 chapters, which comes out to an average of around 4.8 chapters per episode, like on average. Some episodes are literally 5 chapters. Now, let me tell you what can't do this. Let me tell you what fucking manga literally cannot do that. One Piece literally cannot do that. Now, One Piece has had the opposite issue where they can take one chapter and adapt one chapter into one episode and it gets padded out and it's really annoying. And that's a problem that it's had in the past.
But a good sweet spot for one, dude, if they averaged 2.5 chapters, I think the One Piece anime would be golden.
I agree. But to be able to do 5, let me just tell you the detail that is lacking from Bleach manga. Have you ever read the Bleach manga, guys? Because it is lacking detail. There are multiple. So Kenny just read all of Bleach recently. Like recently, he went through from the beginning of it all the way to the 1,000-Year Blower arc and everything. So he's read all of it very recently, like in the last month. And so he can really speak to this even more than I can because I haven't read the manga in years, like probably 10. But I remember reading the 1,000-Year Bloodward arc, and there are literally chapters where there's no backgrounds drawn. There are panels. There are several panels where you will just see Zaraki, and there's nothing in the background. It's just Zaraki on a white panel. Nothing's there. It is not because something is happening in the fight that requires there not to be a background. They're fighting in a place. It is just not drawn. And that happens with several chapters of this arc. And I'm sure it happens in other chapters prior to the 1,000-Year Bloodward arc, but I don't remember those because those are even older than this whole thing. But yeah, Bleach does not have the most detail, whereas when you read something like Naruto or One Piece being the goat of it all, there is so much in a One Piece chapter to look at. And I actually do take my time, so does Kenny, to look at the chapter, look at all the detail. It takes me about 15 plus minutes on average to read One Piece chapters. So catching up on One Piece is actually a chore for me, and not in the sense that like it's something I don't want to do, but it takes time. I know that it's a commitment. Yeah. If I'm going to read 20 chapters of One Piece to catch up, it's going to take me a while to get through that many chapters because I'm not going to rush through it just to get current. I have to look at all of the details that Oda includes. There's oftentimes little Easter eggs or crazy things that you could easily overlook. And in between chapters, because One Piece is so detailed, I like to go on Reddit and I'll literally type in a discussion thread for just that chapter. And those things are spoiler free. They won't go ahead of it at all. They'll just talk about just
typically
that chapter.
That thread you're looking at was made the fucking day that chapter or the day after that chapter came out.
Yep. And then it'll say like, this is a spoiler free. Do not discuss anything outside of this chapter, and anything prior to it obviously is on the table because you have to draw, Oda's the goat with that. But I say a lot to say Bleach chapters are just not very detailed. So I am not surprised that you can take 5 chapters of this manga and say, this is one episode, and it works. And it actually works.
Crazy. That's why I like the Genru Usai being one up. I mean, it wasn't much better in the manga. It feels a little better just because like it's not one chapter.
Yeah.
But the fact that they, his Bankai and his defeat is in the same episode is so crazy.
It felt longer in the manga because it was, in the sense that you had to wait multiple weeks. But if you think about the totality of it all, it really wasn't much longer, like Kenny said. And they even expanded on it in the anime, but we really get, I don't know how.
The episode looks, dude, the part where the whole screen is covered in flames, and then they disappear and like go into his bro.
And it gets
quiet. I rewound that scene like 3 times. Like it looked so, and then like it goes through the other people, and like it shows like a vase with a flower in it, and like there's no water in the vase, wilting. And it goes to Kyojaku. I forget how to say his name.
Oh yeah, the blood on his lip. Kyoraku.
Yeah, his lips start cracking. Like
I think they go at one point. They go to what's the frozen kid? The let it go. Yeah, him. They go to him, and his stolen ice Bankai can't activate anymore. So he's fighting against one of the Star Ridders, and the guy's like, what the deuce? Like, why can't I use this anymore? And he's like, yeah, bitch, Hiyorimaru doesn't work when Captain Commander's Bankai is simply active. Which, can I just talk about this? The fact that all the captains in Soul Society accept that they're going to die if Captain Commander activates it, he simply breathes. And they're like, well, we all accepted when we signed up for death. Like, we signed up to die if this guy needs to use his Bankai for longer than 20 seconds. They literally start dying, and some people's Bankais no longer work. Like Toshiro, that's his name. For Toshiro's actual sword completely to be invalidated by another person in the Soul Society, I think that's wild. I think it's just wild that literally his sword can no longer function, Shikai or Bankai, at all. Like, at all.
Yeah, all of its ability. He just has to be a swordsman.
Yes.
He has to just hit you with some Kenshin shit.
that's so wild. Like I think they said Captain Commander literally evaporates all of the moisture in the air in the entire Soul Society. Like he becomes the temperature of the sun, and all of the flames get put into his blade, but somehow it's still that hot outside. It's crazy. They even show like the background is wavy. Like they show how hot it actually is. And what I love is that Yuabak is staring at Captain Commander, and he's like, "What the fuck did all those flames go? Like, were they ever really there, or was that like basically it's something that his Rietu is showing you, but they're not actually factually there. That's just how powerful and ridiculous his Rietu is." But then Captain Commander's like, "Actually, the flames, they're very real, and they're all in the tip of my sword now." And he slices his cape. He's like, "He cut me, but nothing happened." And you just see the cape has like a little rip in it. And then he taps the ground. And this is where I lost it. I lost it. When Captain Commander simply tapped the ground with his sword, and that shit instantly evaporated. I was like, oh my God. Like, I think that was my exact reaction. I was like, oh my God. Like, don't get touched by that shit.
He's too strong. And it's just like, it's just crazy. Now, it's something that this arc did, or this season did, that was like, I don't know. They did this thing where they took the characters that were really strong and they gave you an excuse as to why they lost. So, for example, after it was all over, Yahweh says like, "Oh, you could have got your arm back." Because one thing we know is like Zaraki fights with one arm, and Captain Commander tried to teach him to use two arms, and then like they told him not to. Blah blah blah. But basically, he uses Zanjutsu. He fights with his sword. He uses two hands, and he never repaired his arm.
Yeah, and he could
before.
easily do it,
and that's supposed to be like a hint to basically say like, oh, if he had, it's so that fans on Reddit could go, oh, if he had two arms, he would have won.
Right.
And it's just like, I still don't even believe that, because like his sword, I think he could have won with one arm. I just think the writer decided he wasn't going to win.
The writer decided that they had to write him off, which they had to kind of do in the Aizen arc, because Aizen was just absolutely outrageous, and you needed Dangai Ichigo to beat him. And they didn't really know what to do with Captain Commander, so they made Wonder Wise, and then they made Captain Commander sacrifice his arm. And then they also, in the same Arrancar arc, they show Zaraki put two hands on a sword to kind of foreshadow, I guess. Even though I don't really think it was foreshadow, but I think that they kind of said, let's go back to something that happened a long time ago, where Zaraki put two hands on his sword, and he became outrageously stronger than he was against Neutra. So it's like, okay, there's a precedent for two hands being ridiculous in Bleach. That's fine. You can establish whatever you want in your fantasy world, and we just have to accept it. When I watch Harry Potter, I accept that people fly on brooms, and that they can cast spells, and that ghosts can talk to you in a toilet. I accept all of those things because that's the world that the J.K. Rowling built. That's their fantasy world. Yep. So in Bleach, apparently putting two hands on your sword increases your power. It's a buff that's like 10x your power. Like it literally is the same as, is the equivalent of going Kaioken to some ridiculous degree. Like it's actually absurd how much stronger, because if you remember, when Zaraki was fighting Neutra at first, with one hand, he couldn't even slice through his actual skin. I forget what they call a Roncar skin. There's a term for it.
Yeah.
But I know they have their Pescius is like their sensory ability or whatever, and Sonito is their flash step. I forget what their skin is called, because I know the Stern Ridders have Bloop Vein, but they have hard skin, and their hard skin literally made it where Zaraki couldn't cut him. So when he was fighting Neutra, Neutra was bragging about how I'm the Rancor out of all 10 that has the Espada out of all 10 Espada, I'm the one that has the hardest skin. You won't ever pierce me. And he puts two hands on his sword. He cuts him in half immediately. Like it's instant. It goes from you can't even cut this guy to you literally cut him in half, and it's a one-hit KO. There's nothing to it. Zaraki's complaining like, man, the old geezer tried to teach me this years ago. I hate using this style. It really blows, but I guess I'm gonna die, so I have to do this. So he puts two hands, he slashes, and Neutra literally dies. You never see him again. So there's a precedent for Captain Commander having one arm and being able to say, oh, it's nerfed. But here's where I don't agree, and here's why Kenny probably doesn't agree either, is because his Bankai really doesn't have much to do with him putting two hands on his sword. Zaraki had a reason. Zaraki is basically the Rock Lee of Bleach, right? He doesn't have like any ninjutsu. He doesn't use Kido ever. Like it seems like he doesn't even know Kido, if we're being honest. He doesn't use any Kido ever. And he also doesn't do anything like his Shikai and Bankai or whatever, which we won't talk about all of that stuff, but I'm just saying like what you see from him from Bleach to the beginning all the way to the 1,000 Year Blood War arc part 1. He just swings that shit. He just swings his sword. That is his power. He's a captain off of literally swinging his sword. All of these other captains, they all have every captain has a Bankai, right? That is like a requirement. The only one who doesn't have one is literally Zaraki Kenpachi. Every single other captain has a Bankai. They often don't use it, like Ukitake and Kyoraku blatantly are like, I was thinking about using it in the Eisen arc against Stark and stuff like that, and they decided like it's not a good idea to do that because everybody will die. Like there are multiple Bankais that we just do not see until I guess now when like we see how the commanders and stuff, and that's fine. But my point is, Zaraki only swung his sword, so for him to put two hands on a sword and get way stronger and amp or whatever, I was like, okay, that's fine. That's all he has anyway. It's like if Rock Lee takes off the weights, you understand that somebody who only does taijutsu is not the biggest stretch to say, oh, something as simple as him switching stances or being drunk or that could give him an amp because he only uses this thing. But Captain Commander literally has what I would call, it's a very keto based Bankai / Shikai. Like he has these fire abilities that are absolutely ridiculous. At one point he raised the dead. Like that is a very magical like thing. Like he fucking raised the dead and was like, yeah, look at these souls. All of these are the people that I've slain. So I just didn't get the whole, oh, if he, I like you said, the Reddit people who might be out there saying, well, if he had two arms, and then Yuha Baki even says, yeah, because you didn't want to rely on humans, because back in the day, it was an ass pull.
Yeah, it's wild. It's so wild. And then like, I don't know, I have big gripes with the stealing Bankai thing, but I guess my gripes, I can't really talk about my gripes until later because, but I have gripes with the stealing Bankai thing, but it looks really.
Can I talk about the stealing Bankai thing a little bit? And
go ahead.
I want to hear your thoughts on this. So very early on, they are all told blatantly by Mayuri over the intercom, they can steal Bankais. Like they get told this. Sasakibi, the lieutenant under Captain Commander, he explains it as he's dying, right? I think he says it in like his last words, like my Bankai was stolen or something like that. And then
they think it's a seal. They think their Bankai gets sealed.
Yes, they think that their Bankai is being sealed, but either way, right? They know that using Bankai is a mistake. Going into this season, they know that after two people have said it. Even Mayuri later in the season, when several captains get their Bankai taken, he's like, motherfuckers, I told you guys.
He's like, you guys couldn't have waited. Like, what the hell?
Like, I literally told you guys, that's the one thing. Like, just don't do that. And so you have people like Byakuya, who's usually considered one of the smarter people. Like, he was always one of the smarter ones to me that, intelligence isn't really revered, or I shouldn't say revered. It is revered because, you have, what's his name?
Urahara
and Aizen. They're revered as the two most intelligent people in the entire series, right? And that's fine. But they don't talk about other people's intelligence outside of that. Whereas in Naruto, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I'm thinking about other shonens, right? In Naruto, you have people talking about how intelligent Itachi is, Shikamaru, Kakashi, Neji. They talk about several people's intelligence as like a point of why they're powerful, why they're strong in that verse. Whereas that doesn't really come up that much in Bleach. Bleach is more so just two people that they talk about how smart they are, and everyone else is kind of, and also obviously Mayuri because he is just goated. But pretty much no one else's intelligence really comes up as a big deal. And even if you're kind of dumb like Zaraki is, that still doesn't really come up that often in Bleach where it's like, this is a point of contention or this makes this character weak. It's just like, yeah, this guy chooses to let himself be cut because he just likes battle that much, which is not the smartest thing in the world, but it is what it is. But yeah, they have like the smartest guys telling him, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't use your Bankai. And they get into their first encounter and they all start using Bankai. And I'm like,
bro, let me just say this too. Byakuya is the captain, okay?
Yes.
And Renji is the lieutenant.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm watching this fight and I go, why didn't they tell Renji to do his Bankai first? Because here's what happens, right? If Renji does his Bankai first, one of two things happens. The guy they're fighting either A, steals Renji's Bankai or seals Renji's Bankai, and now Byakuya can use his, or B, he doesn't seal Renji's Bankai, and then Renji just has his Bankai out because maybe he wants to save it for Byakuya.
Yes, which is, both of those things could absolutely happen. And I will say this to play devil's advocate, there is one other option that could happen. Because they don't know how it works, but maybe they can take more than one.
That's true, but like Byakuya's plan was, I'm going to use my Bankai so we can figure out how they seal it, and then you use your Bankai to stop them. And I'm like, wait, just switch the roles.
Yes.
Why not?
Why not subordinate?
Yeah, let him get sealed, and then you dick on him. Like
I agree 100%, and there honestly is no rebuttal at all for it. It is actually just bad writing, if I'm being honest. And we just kind of accept it because they wanted to make a moment of, like you said, they used every powerful Bleach character that we know. They literally, when I think about it, they actually used all of them too. Like Captain Commander, Zaraki, and Byakuya all got defeated.
Mhm.
Those are the three strongest. In fact, I think that like when you look at the Arrancar arc, they don't even get to really participate that much because Aizen said I was worried about certain people in your squad, so they got kind of trapped in Hekamundo. Like Byakuya and Zaraki get trapped in Hekamundo.
Yeah, and they fight Yami or Yama, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, they fight.
And he's like a Ronkar 0 because he has infinite strength or whatever.
And they never take him seriously. They literally fight each other kind of while they fight him, and he gets killed off of collateral damage. But that's neither here nor there. But they use their powerful characters like Byakuya, Zaraki, and Captain Commander as Jiraiya. And if for people who didn't understand what we meant when we said everyone is Jiraiya earlier, Jiraiya was used in the Naruto series just to show how powerful Pain was. If you go back and you really look at what Jiraiya accomplished, he didn't really train Naruto up in any significant way because after the time skip, Naruto encounters Sasuke, and he's so much weaker than Sasuke when he encounters him. Sasuke cuts off Kurama. Sasuke is about to do Karen. He also like paralyzes Naruto. He starts pulling his sword on Naruto. Naruto can't even move. Sai gets absolutely bodied. Sakura's just standing in disbelief. He almost solos Team 7 in their first encounter. And then they start thinking that he's literally on drugs when they report back. When they report back to Tsunade, they're like, oh, he must be doping because there's no way he's actually this strong. But he is, because Orochimaru is just that much of a better fucking teacher than whatever the bullshit that Jiraiya showed Naruto. Like, he didn't even teach him Sage Mode. Like, what were you doing with the boy? He didn't even show, and he didn't even learn Futon Rasengan with Jiraiya, which is one of the best techniques in the entire series. He didn't even learn that with Jiraiya. Like, he learns that when he's with Kakashi, right? Doesn't he learn about the elemental manipulation? Kakashi's like, here's the leaf. Let's see what kind of element you have. So my whole thing is, there's a 3-year time skip, and Jiraiya doesn't really accomplish anything. So in my eyes, Jiraiya doesn't really accomplish anything in the whole series. He doesn't really win any fights, right? Like Jiraiya, if you look at all his track record, he fought Pain, he lost to Pain, and outside of that, he doesn't really have any fights that he wins or anything. So they use this guy who's revered though, because his name means something. He's a legendary Sannin, and it's one of the reasons why I think that Naruto needs a prequel, not a sequel, that should focus on the 3 legendary Sannin as children, and then they will literally have like
we need to see them do shit, because like they build Jiraiya up in name only, but they never give us a chance to see how dope he is.
Yeah, he's
and
just
then
washed as an old guy.
Yeah, it's
his
frustrating.
Sage Mode, they tell us his Sage Mode is imperfect. He takes a very long time to gather Sage energy. He has to run away from Pain in the tunnels, and then when he finally does go Sage Mode, it's imperfect. So he needs Ma and Pa to keep gathering the natural energy. And on top of that, he looks like a frog. And if you look too much like a frog, that means that your Sage Mode's imperfect. And it's just a whole thing where they constantly shit on him throughout the entire series. He ends up getting killed. And the whole point of him getting killed was, hey, let's take one of the so-and-so strongest ninjas in the entire verse, Jiraiya, and let's have a guy absolutely body him. Right, like at the end of that fight, he gets his arm ripped off. He gets impaled by 6 rods, and all of the Pains are in perfect condition again. They all are just literally in mint condition at the end of the fight. Like they have no sustained damage whatsoever at the end. He accomplished nothing. So it's like, okay, so you used Jiraiya to show how powerful Pain was, and then that's what happens with Captain Commander. He gets a new mode. He gets his Bankai. He uses it, and it's ridiculous, right? Sage Mode. When I first saw Sage Mode, bro. Like the teenage me, when I first read the chapters with Sage Mode and that gigantic Rasengan came out.
Yeah.
Bro, I remember reading that chapter.
Old Dama
Rasengan. When I saw that shit in the chapter and how it was drawn, and then you see that one fat Pain kind of just absorb all of the chakra, I was like, yo, this fight is wild.
It was a crazy fight. It's just unfortunate.
But then Jiraiya
it's unfortunate. When you look at the hindsight of it all, it's like, man, this is so unfortunate. And that's what they did in this arc, is they just hold the characters like Byakuya. I mean, I think Kenpachi didn't really like Kenpachi kind of like he actually lost to the real Yahweh.
He did. He killed some people, I think, and then he gets bodied off screen too. Ichigo just arrives, and I'm pretty sure Yuha Bak is just holding up Zaraki, like he just
Yeah, yeah.
He's just casually holding him. I think that happens. But yeah, he just gets bodied off screen. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, he
But
does
he's
get
not
bodied.
dead.
He's not. Yeah, he's not dead. He gets bodied by the strongest guy, which is acceptable. And I guess the part that's kind of weird is that Yuhabak didn't just straight up kill him, but because he has him on his list of people.
A special threat list.
Yeah, it's so weird. And he's like, do you know why you weren't on my special threat list, Captain Commander? It's because you didn't get your arm back. And I'm like, motherfucker, his Bankai invalidated everyone else in the Soul Society. How would he not be a threat? Like, how would he not be on your list because he has one arm, but he has the strongest Bankai by far of anyone in Soul
He
Society?
also, like, he could have, like, I get it. He was just going for the boss, right?
Yes,
And
but he
like,
could have gone around and killed everybody in that bitch.
And like, really fast too. Like, it wouldn't have taken long. It wouldn't have taken long for him to just wipe out the whole alphabet of Stern Ritter.
Yes.
Like, the whole alphabet could have been gone.
The alphabet boys would have got wiped out. I really so I'll say this right now. I am not good with their names. Their names are rents to me.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
I know all of the Arrancar names. I know all of the Espada names. I actually like the Espada names and the Arrancar names. I can't tell you any of the fucking people in the Stern Ritter, and maybe as I continue to watch anime, I will learn them eventually. But like, for example, I thought that the guy or girl that fought Byakuya, they referred to him as a him, but I kept looking at this person like, this person might be trans, guys. Like, we don't know.
The whole time I read the manga, I thought it was a girl.
Same.
When I read the manga, I thought it was a girl. When I watched the anime, I realized it's a guy, I guess.
Called him a guy. And I was like, are we just assuming this person's gender? Because I don't see a guy. Now, obviously, you can identify with whatever you want to. I don't really fucking care. Whatever you want to be called, I will use whatever pronouns people want me to use. But I just thought it was weird that this person who, to me, looked more female than anything, they were just like, his. And I was like, I don't know that is a guy, but sure. Anyway, I thought that character was cool because he had this really dope line that he had with Byakuya that I'll talk about in a second. But like, I don't remember any of their names. And I just feel like maybe it's because it's a bit rushed. Like, I just feel like Bleach in general, this arc, when I was reading it, I felt like it was rushed. And now that I'm watching an anime where there are 5 chapters in one episode, I can still feel the rushed. The
pacing is very rushed. And their names, it's still like, it's too hard to remember everybody's names. I try my best to just remember like their letter and like what they're, because like that's what they are. Like the guy we're talking about, the fight Byakuya, he is fear. Like that. Yes. That's like his subtitle. He's fear. Yep, and so it's like, all right, I'll remember that he's fear. I don't know what his real name is, but he is fear.
And the one guy who trapped Ichigo was Jail. So Jay, I'm assuming, right? Because he said that I'm Jail, and he shot something at Ichigo that made it where he couldn't get out. And then they explained later on that the only reason Ichigo got out of it was because he has Quincy powers. And I was like, oh, here we go. But yeah, so I guess I'll talk about the fear guy and why I thought he was cool. There was a point where Byakuya was fighting him, and he was probably reminiscing on when he fought that one Espada that literally started taking control of his limbs and all that shit and controlling him. He started to imagine Rukia melting away and decomposing. He started thinking that he was actually inflicted with some type of poison. And as he's having this thought, the guy, Fear, literally said, I bet right now you're thinking that you're poisoned. I love in anime in general when characters just read someone's mind as they're thinking it. There was another one in the Arrancar arc with Aizen where Ichigo starts backing up from Aizen, right? They're like, they're not really fighting. They're kind of just whatever. But Aizen gets close to Ichigo. Ichigo evades and backs up real far. And Aizen says, why'd you back up? Ichigo's like, maybe if I put some space between us, I'll be able to analyze the situation. And he's like, you're probably thinking right now, if you put some space between us, you'll better be able to analyze the situation. And I just love when they say exactly what is happening. And then I think at one point Aizen says to him, the only time you move away in a fight between two people is when you're on the same level. He was like, but in your case, I'm so much stronger than you that I could just put my hand on your heart like this. And the next panel is just Aizen touching Ichigo's bare chest. Like, I don't even know how he got his hand in his fucking, like, whatever that garb is called that they wear, but he has his hand in his bare chest, and he's just like, I could just put my hand on your heart like this. It's so cool, though. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, man. Oh, I know. It's one of my favorite panels.
Yes,
sequences.
it's so good. So when he says not Ichigo, Byakuya is thinking to himself, he's like, am I poisoned? Maybe it's poison running through my body. And the guy says, you probably think you're fucking poisoned, don't you? Because you're that cocky. You're that cocky that you forgot what fear is. You forgot what actual fear is, and that's all it is. It's not even anything crazy. It's literally just a thought that you could lose, that you haven't experienced in so long, that you think that it's something like poison. And I thought that was
really cool.
I thought it was cool, but I also thought that was kind of to sum up the entire arc, is that the Shinigami are losing to the Quincy's because of their arrogance. It's their arrogance that has really crippled them in this entire arc. They made a big point of it with that scene with Byakuya, but then he also said, like, Captain Commander, you could just have 2 arms. Like, Sasuke, you could just have 2 arms. Like, we have people who can just literally heal these things, and you guys are choosing to be nerfed, almost to say, like, I don't need to be at full power because a crisis that is on my level will never happen.
Yeah.
And you guys rely on your Bankais, and you assume that in any pinch, I could just call out Bankai, and it will invalidate my opponent, which has gotten you this far. They have all lived for hundreds of years, maybe some of them even thousands, and Bankai has been enough every time. Like, there's not been a single fight where Bankai just wasn't enough. In fact, some people are getting by without Shikai or Bankai. So
you know what's interesting too is, like, Zaraki Kenpachi shows that there is so much more for all of them to learn, right?
Yes.
If he's that strong with no powers, so to speak,
he
doesn't have magic that he's using, right? And he's so much stronger than all of you that you guys basically need your Bankais to keep up with him. Like, all of the other captains, like, not one of them, I think, could beat him without Bankai. Like, it's not like there's a captain that
can we also be clear here? Most of them can't beat him with Bankai. They have,
most of them aren't beating him with Bankai.
If I recall correctly,
they all have so much room to grow still.
I agree. If I recall correctly, and you could tell me if I'm wrong here, because you read this very recently, 2 captains jumped him and used Bankai on him, and he beat both of them.
Are you talking about in Soul Society?
I think Tozen and
it was Tozen and
Kimomura.
Dog Guy. Yeah.
Kimomura. Yeah, I think that they both used their Bankai. At one point, I remember him being in total darkness and saying, I can't feel nothing, I can't hear anything, I can't see anything, and he's getting stabbed up and basically killed. And then he just says, this doesn't really work on me either, though. And he just starts beating Tozen. And then the other guy has an Iron Giant, and he just slashes it.
He beat the shit out of Tozen and I always forget his name, the dog. Kimomura. He beat both of them, and they both used their Bankai.
And didn't Ichigo say, or no, Ichigo said this about Aizen. But anyway, the question was brought up when Aizen, I guess, soloed, because he also soloed them, or soloed Kimomura with Black Coffin. But Ichigo says, like, why is another captain able to 0 difficulty another captain like that?
Yeah, like, they're both captains.
They're
like,
both captains. Ichigo literally was, I think he was on the ground. I think he was actually on the ground, like, incapacitated, unable to move. And he was like, I don't understand why 2 captains fighting, one of them is so much stronger than the other one. He couldn't believe it. And it makes sense, right? Because it's like, you guys are all considered the same title. How the fuck could you be considered the captain? If I'm a captain, I just one-shotted you.
It's disgusting.
So Zaraki, some people's Bankais are not even good. Like, I don't think Toshiro will be able to beat him. The fuck's he going to do? You going to freeze him? Grimjaw broke out of Rukia's bullshit freeze me thing, 0 difficulty. And Zaraki's way stronger than Grimjaw. And obviously Toshiro's way stronger than Rukia. But my point being made here is that, like, every time Toshiro uses Bankai, it's pretty much just gotten bodied. The first time he ever uses it, he used it on Aizen. Aizen literally says, it's so nice to see the snow at this time of the year. Like, and then he slashes him up and cuts him real bad. I think the other time he uses it on Aizen, he ends up stabbing Hinamori in the back. Like, every time he uses Bankai, things just don't go well.
Poor Hitsugaya.
Yeah, he has it bad. He has it real bad.
He gets it bad. Yeah, there's some cool shit here, though. I was about to say, I was just going to mention, I like Hirako, I think is his name. He was like the leader of the Visors.
Shinji Hiroko, yes. Shinji is really dope.
I like his Bankai.
I also like his new hair. I like his Bankai. I like his new hairstyle. I really like all the characters. We didn't really touch on this yet, but the design of all the characters after, I guess, this time skip, they all look a little different.
Yeah.
And I think that's so dope. I think that it's just cool. Like, Byakuya has these little things in his hair now. He looks more royal. Like, his actual outfit changed. Where he looks way more royal, way more rich than he already was. He's one of the top families or whatever, but he looks even more rich and royal now.
On the note of Zaraki, I like his hair just like out. Like, he just has like a mane.
Yeah, like, I like that shit. That is sick. Zaraki's hair, he does look way more savage now.
Yeah.
So I do like that certain characters just got a complete redesign, and it is interesting seeing Shinji in a captain coat again, because I think he used to be a captain or some shit back in the day.
He did. He was Aizen's captain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He chose Aizen, but well, that's what he thought. And Aizen said it wasn't you who chose me; it was me who chose you. But yes, he was Aizen's captain, which does not sound right when you say it. Like even when you said that just now, my brain was like, "What?" But I forgot how Aizen started off as a fucking lieutenant. Like Aizen was all bullshit and back to the pendulum.
He really was.
He was
He
all
really fucking
bullshit.
was.
Oh, Bleach is great. I really love Bleach. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this arc. Okay, so like I said with the Byakuya thing, he was fighting against fear, and the guy explained to him what was happening. And after he uses his Bankai and loses it, it gets stolen, and the guy activates it and starts using it against him. It was really brutal. That entire fight scene where you just see Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi literally washing away like his body like that and just slicing him up. I thought to myself, okay, well now you know what it feels like because you've been doing this shit for 500 chapters. You've been just absolutely dicking on all of your enemies with this. Yeah, he uses it on everybody, and he's like, be swallowed by its throat. And all this crazy freak shit that he says when he starts activating it. He tells people, like, be swallowed in a tempest in the eye of the tornado of Senbon Sakura. Like, all these elegant lines that he has. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of fucking cherry blossoms cutting you up. And he got the experience at firsthand now. But the way the guy, you will see, like, and it was animated so beautifully, you will see a sideways profile view of him and a wave of fucking cherry blossoms.
Could you try again?
Oh, excuse me. My watch
Siri, relax.
My watch is talking to me. Anyway, you will see a wave of cherry blossoms just wash through his body. And then I would think it's over because he's about to collapse. And then another fucking wave of cherry blossoms would come past. And then he would get even more ruined. It was crazy.
Yeah, he was like impaled into the wall. Not impaled, but like dug into a wall. Like deep. Like the wall was cratered. And then if you look, the wall was like, the crater was like slathered in blood.
Yes.
He was just covered in blood. He was all cut up and destroyed. And like he couldn't move. And then when Ichigo showed up, like this is Byakuya, somebody with like the most pride in Soul Society. Like he resorts to like asking Ichigo to save Soul Society. And it's kind of crazy that a character with so much pride is, resorting.
A couple things happen too. Because his sword breaks, right?
Yeah, his sword does break. When he's like up against the wall, his sword shatters.
His sword shatters, and I believe that they keep showing him about to drop it. There's like a zoom in of his hand. Excuse me. There's like a zoom in of his hand, and you see the sword starting to like move in his hand, not in a good way. Like it's literally starting to fall. And I forget if he actually drops it or not, but I feel like it, like you said, it did break, which is really a bad thing, of course. But yeah, that entire sequence was really well done.
Going. If only Renji got his Bankai stolen.
Yeah, if only Renji got his trash Bankai stolen. I hate Renji's Bankai. I want to say something so bad, but it's like a huge spoiler. So I'll just completely disregard. But yeah.
But yeah, the animation, like even in the parts that like that we like or don't like for example, I think the Byakuya fighting the Fear, I think that was a really cool scene, and I don't think that, even though I still think it's in line with them using the strongest characters to show us how strong these guys are, when the way Byakuya lost and the way it's explained, like I'm kind of fine with, other than him using his Bankai first.
Yeah.
I think Renji should use his Bankai first. Other than that, him losing to the Fear and like him being so removed from Fear and like so above everything that he doesn't even realize what it is that he's feeling. Like, all of that was really cool. Like I don't really have any complaints about any of that.
Yeah, I agree. They've just been complacent. I think I really liked a lot of things in that fight. Just kind of going back to it. So sorry that I'm like elaborate because I'm remembering it right now. I watched this about a month ago and I'm remembering a lot of the details now, but there was a point where he used his Shikai or Bankai and you saw the little cherry blossoms try to attack F. And when they did, one of them literally was on his eyeball.
It was on his eye, and he was using the blood vein.
And then they zoom, because at first you're like, how the fuck is that cherry blossom just stuck on his eye and it's not cutting it, right? And then they zoom in, and you just see the blue lines on his eyeball, and he doesn't even flinch, right? Like, he doesn't even slightly move out of the way. He takes the attack full force, which I do have another gripe with this, and I guess we're already kind of saying it in so many words, but I'm just going to say it in a simpler way. I don't like how strong the Quincy's are.
No, it doesn't make sense.
I don't like how absolutely ridiculous the Quincy's are. They're like way too strong in my opinion.
Like, you could argue that, because it's not really explained or shown. I'm not 100% sure where they all came from. Like, as far as I know, they were all dead. Like, I don't really know where they all came from.
So we can't really say anything right now. With the
I don't know if they were training. I don't know what happened. But, like, they just kind of showed up. But I know one thing. I know Yahweh was dead for 1,000 years. Like, I know he wasn't training.
Yes.
And it's just weird. Like, they are so... Like, think about everything. Okay, put it this way, right? None of the Quincy's, and probably not even Yahweh, is stronger than Aizen, okay?
Right.
And they've already fought Aizen, and they spent the last, like, after the Aizen arc, they spent all that time, like, they knew how outclassed they were. So, like, they were training for a goal. Like, when the Fullbringer arc happens, and, like, we get to see all of them come again at the end of the Fullbringer arc, like, Renji says, like, we spent all of this fucking time training and getting so much stronger because of everything that happened with Aizen. Like, if anything like that were to happen again, like, we want to be able to actually do something, right?
Without having to rely on you, who no longer has powers at all.
So, like, they saw the ceiling, the Aizen ceiling, and we're supposed to believe they trained to a point to at least hopefully be able to compete with them in some way.
If they jump them, yes. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, these Quincy's are all still stronger than them, like, by a margin.
Every single Quincy that we saw was every single Quincy we saw was basically way stronger than every single captain. It wasn't even close.
Yeah, except Zaraki, who killed 3 of them easily.
Yes, and I don't think that those were part of the main Sternritter Wonder Reich thing or whatever. Like, there's like his core group, right? Like the ones that are special. And I feel like none of them that he killed were in that. You could tell, like, for example, the one guy who Drew Graham Hoshwell, the one guy that's always with him. Like, he's just always with him.
Yeah, that's like the guy.
That's his guy, right? But then you could tell certain other ones also have a bit of favoritism to him. And like Fear, I think F is one of the strongest ones. I think it's like kind of clear to tell that F is going to be, he's probably going to be in the end game, right? And I don't mind him setting up for like these later fights, like Byakuya will probably get his look back and stuff like that. But I just think it's a little corny to have an entire group of people come out of nowhere and just wipe out the actual strongest characters in the entire series, 0 difficulty.
Bro, when they were given the stats, like, when the Quincy's invaded, it was like, it's been 97 seconds and 1,000 Shinigami are dead. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, like, what's the point of Shinigamis then? If they can be killed this easily by Quincy's, who they apparently wiped out thousands of years ago, why do they even exist? Like, why wouldn't the Quincy's have been completely annihilated at that point? And like, you know, I like that Mayuri did say, this is all your fault. He said that the Captain Commander, like, this is all your fault. Is because you failed to act 1,000 years ago when I told you should have killed that boy or whatever he says, something like that. You should have ended this 1,000 years ago, and you didn't. And now we're dealing with this bullshit. So Sasakibi's death and everybody else who dies is all the blood is on your hands. And Mayuri never holds his punches, and it seems like he doesn't really care who he's talking to either. Which
he doesn't.
I really like about
Mayuri's also just so cheating. We didn't get to see him do anything yet this season.
Not yet.
But he's a character that, like, if you think back on every time he's ever fought, he's an absolute cheater. And like,
he's a menace. Kenny's right. He's one of my favorite captains. I have him top 3. He's top 3 captains in the entire series for me because he doesn't really lose any fights. Like, the closest thing I can think of him taking an L, and it's not really an L because honestly nothing really happened, but it's when Ishida first used.
That's like his only loss, I think.
And it's not, and again, Uryu. And it's not even really. It's like the Orochimaru type of loss, where Orochimaru fought the 4-tailed Naruto, and he's like, "Okay, my body's actually giving out here. I'm gonna leave. Y'all can deal with the 4 tails now, but just so you know, before I leave, you're not stronger than Sasuke in your current state. So hold that L, and I'll be back later." I love that, and so the same thing kind of happened here, where you just have, I don't know it.
You know what's crazy? What's so crazy, while all of this is happening, while all of Bleach is happening right now, this entire season, just know that there is an Arrancar still dying. Because when Mayuri fought I don't remember what his name is, but the scientist Arrancar, when he fought him, he gave him like the super serum and like made his eyesight so like fast and crazy and blah blah blah, all of his senses, and that he like stabbed him, and then basically he said like, you won't feel the pain and like the death until like 1,000 years from now or whatever.
That's what he
said.
said.
Then in the manga though, they actually do a flash forward like hundreds of years in the future and show him finally die. So like he legit stays there dying for hundreds of years.
That's wild to me. He's just standing in a random part of Hecamundo dying.
Like right now, while this is happening, because this isn't hundreds of years later.
No,
so
it's
while
not.
all this is happening, he's dying.
It is kind of wild that Zio Aparo Grants is just sitting there, still facing and realizing the stab that happened a while ago now. It's been several years now since he's been stabbed by Mayuri, who walked away and said, "Enjoy your perfection, asshole." But yeah, they have these characters who, like, he lost to Ishta in a way. Ishta sacrificed all of his Quincy powers to do that, if I'm not mistaken, though. Like, Ishta was like, fuck it, this is a captain.
At the time.
At the time, yeah. Well, you know how that goes. Ichigo also sacrificed all his powers to beat Aizen, but look at where we are. Yeah, he sacrificed all his powers. He beats Mayuri's Bankai, which was that creepy looking baby thing that was running down the hallway, and he shoots the arrow through it. And then Mayuri's like, all right, cool, you got me. I'm actually just going to leave. And while I'm leaving, I am completely intangible as this liquid, which I was like, what type of nonsense is that? How are you just going to turn into a liquid and then also declare, like, bro, you can't, like, you know how when kids play and they're just like, oh, no, I put up a shield, nothing can get through my shield, like nothing can happen.
Touch me no more.
Yeah, yeah. When you're playing tag, I won't play no more. I won't play no more. You finally get seen under the car, and somebody's about to tag you, and you're like, no, I'm good, bro. I'm not even playing. Like, why the fuck are you under a car?
Fraser's the one that does that though. They're the guys that have asthma, and they go, wait, hold on, I can't breathe.
That's me.
We can't play tag no more. I can't breathe. Hold on, wait. You're just about to tag them. Now all of a sudden they can't fucking breathe.
Bro,
they were running a marathon all day. Right before you thought, now they can't breathe.
Bro, it's Peter Chang. Oh, I need my inhaler. I need it. Oh, these are such basic moves. I can't deal. I can't fucking deal. Yeah, that was definitely me as a kid. I was the asshole who would like hide under a car. You'd find me, and I'm like, I want to play no more. And they're just like, well, why the fuck are you under a car then? why are you under an actual 4-wheel drive vehicle then?
Nonsense.
Yes. So these characters who are like super strong. Mayuri's one of my favorites, despite all of the other people who are, they might outclass him or whatever, but we really don't get to see anything that shows.
I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, Mayuri's the kind of character that I think he could. I think legit.
He could end up beating any of them, right?
Yeah, like he could be. He's nonsense. Like he's one of the strongest. Like he's in the top 5 captains out of the 13. Top 5.
I agree with that. I think he's definitely top 5. I also think that he is. You're basically saying it, but he's hacks.
Yeah,
like he is just hacks. And
because like here's the thing with Mayuri is that there's no reason why, like, he can't beat in a fight Zaraki, Byakuya, like he can't beat any of them in a fight.
Right.
But the thing about Mayuri is that when you fight him, if like when he has a fight, he'll have like a poison potion serum like he'll have something that he cooked up,
or his Bankai will be altered to affect he's you.
Batman with prep time. Like he just makes something up and he's like, oh, but I have this very specific thing that happens to do this very specific thing that only works in this very specific situation, and it beats you completely. And it's like,
and we happen to be in that situation right now, so get fucking owned, queer. Like that's just who he is. He's so good.
Yeah,
I love Mayuri.
But yeah, he's the shit.
Yeah, he has a lot of hacks abilities. Okay, so Aizen was randomly in this arc. He made a cameo.
He was.
And I really enjoyed.
Also, still showing off that he's the best.
Well,
because
obviously.
They show the because like when Captain Commander gets G'd and he thinks he wants, and then the guy's like, I'm sorry, master, and he's like, who's he saying sorry to? That's the boss. And then like when Yahweh, the real one, shows up, by the way, I just now remembered this. They cut out his backstory, the doppelganger. In the manga, he has a whole backstory that they show.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Confused me when I was reading it at first. When I first read the chapter, so I want to talk. So this is something that happens in the manga. The anime is past this. It's not going to show it because it's already past it.
Yep.
So this is something that if you only see the anime, you might have missed. But basically, the guy, his name's like Lloyd or Lloyd, whatever. He's the one that was the doppelganger of Yahweh. He was born with a twin. Like his whole backstory is that like he was born with a twin and like all this other shit, and like he developed his powers that way, and he had a twin and they could never tell them apart and all this other stuff. I just remember that the point is they cut his backstory out, and now I'm thinking I think they might have cut out a couple of other backstories.
They did.
But
when I watched a recap video before this podcast, they were saying that a lot got cut out because they just had to squeeze in a lot
They squeezed in a
and
lot. But I
they
want to say
cut out
this
some
though. This
stuff.
didn't happen. But this is something when I first read the chapter, I remember being so angry about. But I was wrong. When they first started talking about a twin, I was like, "Don't you fucking tell me this Yahweh guy has a twin, and that's not the real Yahweh. There's a second."
Yeah,
Which is kind of what happened anyway. But I thought they were saying he was the other guy's twin, but he was just that guy has his own twin and does his own thing. Anyway, I don't know. They just cut that out. I just thought of it right now.
they didn't really go into any of that detail, and I did forget that that's even a thing because I definitely read the manga up to that point. Like I'm past that where I read and stopped that 10 years ago. But yeah, you are right. They did cut out a lot of stuff, and the recap video that I watched it was only like 23 minutes, but he did say they cut out a lot of the comedy stuff for the sake of the show. They wanted to make it seem a lot more dreary in the beginning. So there's some comedic moments in a manga in the beginning. You know how when everyone's getting annihilated, they're getting killed left and right. They wanted all of that to have heavy impact. So the first 5 episodes, I guess the first 6, because Captain Commander happens episode 6 when he does Bankai. They wanted the first 6 episodes to have a certain tone. Yeah. And so they purposely decided to remove some of the comedic effects. So you know Bleach always has the comedy with like Cone and boobies and stuff like that. What they added though, because they didn't just to take away, they gave us things. Obviously they expanded on a lot of the fights, but they also added episode 1 details for people who hadn't seen Bleach in a while and just kind of to walk them back. Episode 1 was a fan service episode. That did not happen in the manga. That whole part where they all fight against like hollows and they get reintroduced like that doesn't happen in the manga.
Yeah. They fight hollows, but it's like a panel. They kill a hollow and move on. Like they completely expand on it. They reintroduce everybody by name. They get a whole still image. I think that they have Ichigo use his Bankai and stuff, and it's like a lot of stuff that did not happen in that exact same way. And so I'm cool with that. Like some things being cut out. I really don't care about the Sternritters, to be honest, not yet, because they didn't really give us any backstory on them. So the fact they didn't expand on that guy's twin and his backstory yet, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because you don't know anything about any of them anyway. So why would we be expanding on this specific guys? Yeah, if we don't know, I don't even know the fear. Like, why is the fear guy so cocky and broken? It's weird because but that's the problem with the pacing of this arc as a whole, is that first of all, there's seemingly 26 Stern Ritters, right? Because there's one for every letter of the alphabet, and like obviously some of them are just going to get like G'd off, but they don't really spend that much time with them, and like cutting out some of their backstories is a little frustrating because it's like that's when we get to know them. And even in the manga, this arc overall is pretty short compared to the Arankar arc, and there was less Arankars and you had more time to get to know them.
Yep.
And
I genuinely have a connection with several of the Espada. Like as a person, I genuinely remember reading week to week Bleach and saying to myself, I really like Ukiura's character. I like the way he is. I like when he finally revealed, because Ichigo at one point says, I bet you're the strongest one, and if I just beat you, we can end this entire thing. And then Ukiura grabs Ichigo's sword and slices his own shirt open, and it reveals the number fucking 4. And Ichigo immediately starts to despair, and then you find out later all of the Espada are basically human causes of death. And so he's despair. There's gluttony, there's like wrath, which is like Grimjaw, greed, which is greed is the fat one, glutenaria and stuff like that. There's all loneliness, which is Stark. Like I think he had Lily, he created a character out of loneliness. Old age is Baragon, and so it goes on and on and on. They're all like vices and things that humans die by, and even the fact that I can recall that detail, that level of detail about these guys and how they're based on human things that kill us, and they each have their own backstory. Like Baragon hated Aizen because he used to be the king of Hekomundo, and then here comes this fucking Shinigami of all things, who turns him into, because they start off as just they're hollows, like all of them were hollows, and he was the king of Hekomundo, and then Aizen turns him into a hybrid of a Shinigami and a hollow, something that they despise. He turns him into that, and then he's like, not only am I going to turn you into this, but you're number 2. And you're not even just number 2. You're number 2 behind a guy who's behind me. So it's like you're actually you're like it's basically.
And also, not only number 2 behind a guy that's behind me, he's behind 2 other guys.
Yes, because they do have dominion. Tozen and Gin have dominion over the Espada, it seems. Because when he cut fucking Grimjaw's arm off and burned it, Aizen just sat there while Grimjaw had to hold that. So they clearly have some kind of authority, even if they aren't. We don't know, who's strong or whatever, but they clearly have authority over them. Power scaling in Bleach has always been a weird thing, so I don't know if Tozen was actually stronger than Grimjaw.
Tozen is a weird one, but I'm definitely gonna say they're not stronger than Gin.
Yeah, I would say so too, because Gin was considered a prodigy as a kid. He gets a whole backstory. But yeah, my whole point is that the Espada had so much development, like Neutra and how he became the number 5 or whatever he was, Espada, how he basically stole like a spot from Nell, and she has her whole backstory, how she lost her memory, she has amnesia. It just really
Grimjaw's backstory is awesome. It's like him and a bunch of other
leopard,
I forget
like,
all the names, but there's like high level hollows.
Yes.
And they like were building up and they were all like killing all these other hollows and getting stronger. And then like basically they all kind of gave up and sacrificed their power into Grimjaw. And he was like,
because they wanted to become a Vasto Lorde, right? That was the goal.
Yeah, they were trying to become a Vasto Lord, which is like the number 1 strongest hollow before like Espada and stuff started happening. And yes, Grimjaw has like a whole detailed backstory that's really cool.
Even number 9, the guy Apuro, whatever his name is, Rukia fought him, and he took Cayenne's entire identity. He was pretending to be somebody who she was close with and using his appearance against her. And then he was affected by light. There was like a whole backstory with him.
Oh, by the way, sort of like a reveal for anybody that maybe just came back to Bleach but didn't rewatch it. So something that you might be like, oh shit, that's kind of cool now when you think about it. Something that people were saying from the very, like, Ichigo looks like Kain. And
he does.
It's like random. Why does he look like this guy? But he does look just like him. Kain just has black hair instead of orange.
Yeah.
They look very similar. And I think he has like more detailed eyelashes. But anyway, they look very similar and it causes this whole thing. The reveal this season is that Ichigo's is a Shiba. Like Ichigo's dad his name was Ishin Shiba, meaning that Ichigo is directly related to Kain, Ganju, the girl that shoots the cannon, I forgot her name.
Yeah.
The girl with one arm. But yeah, like the reason why they look similar is that they're cousins or whatever.
They're literally related.
You find out that Ichigo's dad, Ishin, his real name is Ishin Shiba, which is one of the 3 great houses of Soul Society or whatever.
Yeah, Byakuya is number 1.
And the one girl says, like, when they send Ichigo up to the royal palace, she says, like, I hope Uncle forgives us or whatever. Like, Uncle's going to be mad. And they show, like, the Ishin's back. So that's why they looked similar, Kain and Ichigo.
That is a cool reveal. I didn't really put that together either. So I'm glad that you kind of said that. That's really dope. Even though at the end of the day, it's not doesn't have any bearings on anything because Ichigo is everything. He literally is. Ichigo is everyone's cousin. So like
that's true.
You said all of that, but you also didn't say anything because Ichigo is related to literally everyone. Ichigo's related to Ishta apparently, right? Like he literally is related to Ishta. I like the whole backstory with his mom, even though it was completely.
I really enjoyed that too. So I think what you're about to say is like it's completely made up and that
absolutely.
was not planned when he first started writing it. That said, I did enjoy all of those, like I say all those episodes. I think it was 2 episodes.
It might have been 2. Yeah, it was the last 2, right? Because
But those episodes with the backstory where we get to see Ishin and Ichigo's mom, all that stuff was awesome. His mom, oh my god, when they're fighting. Ichigo's hollow, by the way, because Ichigo's hollow was an actual hollow at one point.
Yeah, it was called White, I think is his name. Yeah,
his name's White, and you can recognize it has the same mask as Ichigo, the same horns. It is Ichigo's hollow. So anyway,
it probably has a hole in the same spot that Ichigo had when he fought against Ukiura and he transformed into it.
Her and Ishin are fighting this thing, and there's a part where she's shooting him and he's dodging all of it. And then she stops shooting and just like has her hand out and baits him in. He comes in and bites her shoulder, and then like like it's her face looks so badass. She like creates a bow in her hand, does like a finger gun and shoots him in the head. Like it looks crazy.
Why was she able to fight that well? Can we talk about that? Like,
dude, she was a god.
His mom was on some shit.
Like she was wrong.
I thought she was going to be a pretty weak level Quincy, but she actually was just outrageous. She also had an insane blue vein herself. Like everything about her was OP as hell out of nowhere. And then come to find out she got hold because Yuha Bach came back in existence and he took her powers back.
Yeah, which is nuts. That's the thing. It's frustrating. Like, even though I really like those episodes, like just watching those episodes in a vacuum, seeing his mom and dad, how they met, and all that stuff, and then like seeing the origin of Ichigo's power and why he's all these things,
I
and
like
like
how
actually
White
seeing his original hollow. Yeah, go ahead.
I like how White just exploded like out of nowhere while Aizen. So can we talk about Aizen and the gang, the D boys? How they're just walking around in Organization 13 hoods and shit.
Mm-hmm.
They
Which they
literally
stole from Urahara.
They did. They are literally walking around in black robes, and they just look so ridiculous. Like it's Aizen and his boys, his little cronies, the fucking Silverines of Aizen. They're like walking around, watching and observing and stalking this girl because this hollow is after her, and they're just like, wait. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens because they can jump in at any point. Aizen can obviously jump in at any point. The fact that Aizen isn't scared of that thing tells me everything I need to know about power scaling in Bleach. If Aizen was, because people always say, well, Aizen didn't have to fight against Vasto Lorde Ichigo, right? Like he didn't have to fight against Ukiura had to fight against. And I'm like, I don't think it would have mattered. Like I think Aizen is so far above that. He was trying to create that. He said I wanted to create a Vasto Lorde. That was his whole deal. Anyway, my point is.
So also, Vasto Lord Ichigo, once again, like he fought number 4. Like, and number 4 was really strong, had a second release, all this shit.
Great
but
things,
like
beautiful gowns.
But he didn't fight, you know.
Yeah. Aizen's a different level. Aizen's just simply a different. Anyway, the thing I was gonna say is I really liked how they showed the Ichigo's Hollow White. While he was being defeated, you just kind of see it explode, and then it just instantly disappears. And you don't really know what happened. And Aizen's like, let's get the fuck out of here. We like, what the hell? And next thing you know, she falls into a crazy sickness, and they're like, listen, she's a Quincy and she's also a hollow. So you need to counteract that with the exact opposite, which happens to be Shinigami and human or something like that. It was like whatever she wasn't are the two things that were needed to counteract what was happening to her. So he had to go into a Gigai. It was a really complicated scientific reasoning for it all. I accept it because it's Bleach, and I don't really care. It's like you guys are making this up to make Ichigo absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it was just not. It was definitely something I did like though, is that it's all this scientific nonsense, and I do like these kind of characters. Ishin was just like, yeah, like all that's cool, like let's do it.
I'm doing
and they're
it,
like,
yeah.
They're like, how? They're like, this has no benefit to you, nothing. But he's just
gonna
like
lose your powers.
Person. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm saving her. She saved me. I'm saving her.
Yep.
And by the way, when she saved me, she was a badass doing it. Because I still can't get over how cool she looked when she shot that thing in the head. It was awesome.
I like that Ishin knew very quickly that he wanted to be with her. I think that is such a cool love story that he was willing to sacrifice everything he had because he really didn't have anything outside of, he was a captain, and that life is a life of servitude. But clearly he wanted more, and he wanted children, I guess, and he wanted to be in love, and so he gave up his being a captain and his sword, which he had a flame Zanpakuto apparently. He gave all that up, and he gave it up pretty quickly, and that's why it was such a big deal for Urahara to be like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because you know what it means." He's like, "Yeah, I'm down with it, 100%."
Yeah.
And then as soon as he becomes human, he marries her basically.
It's cool when you look back on it too. When you look at like early Bleach, and you see him, like he has like a giant posters of her up, like your mom, and like talk, and like he's this big goofy character, and it's cool. He really loves all of his kids and shit. It's really cool. They have a cool relationship and everything, and like it's
I do
nice.
like that development. Yeah, the whole thing with Ichigo and how he we finally understand how he got that hollow inside of him. It literally subplanted itself into his mom.
I've got some shit to say about that. I got more stuff to say about the Quincy stuff, but we'll get to it.
Okay. I was pretty much done with the whole like his mom and the Quincy nonsense and stuff.
A couple more things I want to say around that topic is I did like seeing that Ishin was captain of Squad 10, which was Toshiro's squad, and that Matsumoto was the lieutenant even back then.
Yo, that is wild to me. She's been around for so fucking long. But go on.
She's been the lieutenant, and it was funny because like, even then he was just like, "Oh, like you're going to be the next captain," talking to Hitsugaya. She's like, "What the fuck? I'm the lieutenant," and he was like, "You can't be the captain. Like you can't." But
it can't be you.
It's cool that Toshiro became the captain, then after him, and then like Matsumoto stayed lieutenant. All that stuff's really cool. But the next thing I wanted to talk about kind of was like, this is something that I want to make it clear because I think we spent a lot of time dogging on Bleach, but I love it. Like I love to see everything was really fun. It looked great and was fun to watch. But I still have more complaints. and one of them is Ichigo learning the same lesson every arc.
Which
So
is
he gets there's a part where him and Renji, when they go to Squad Zero. Squad Zero is just 5 captains, and apparently all 5 captains are stronger than all 13 captains.
yep.
They're like super broken. I cast doubt on any of them being stronger than Yamamoto, but like sure, I guess they are. But anyway, they go there. There's a part where he gets to I do think this guy's really cool. The guy who created Zanpakuto, the man who made
The
Zanpakuto.
rapper, the Killer Bee.
Yeah, they get to him and they send him in, and then like he's like the Asauchi, which are basically the spirits of all these Zanpakutos. They're mad at you because you guys don't know how to treat your Zanpakuto. You use them as tools, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I feel like every fucking arc, Ichigo has a moment. There's a thing where it's like, oh, my Zanpakuto is an actual person. It's a spirit. It's a thing, and like I have to treat it as a like every arc. It's like Ichigo and his sword do this thing where like he has to like realize that his Zanpakuto has a personality and has feelings, and he has to like accept it, and then that makes him stronger. And like it happens, like it feels like he learned the same lesson. Like, oh, my Zanpakuto is a living thing, and I have to grow to accept it. It's so frustrating.
You probably experienced this more than anyone else who's read Bleach, because I would imagine most people read Bleach when it first came out, and then they read the 1,000 Year Blood War arc like either right now, right? Because they're like, oh, Bleach is coming back out, let me read it now. Or they read it back then, so they don't really remember it, and it was also fragmented week to week. Whereas you just spent a good month and a half or whatever binge reading the entire series. So I really trust what you're saying.
It happens the first time he trains with Urahara, and he has to find his real Zanpakuto, and he's just trying to find what the way it looks like. And the whole point is he has to realize that it's a living spirit, and like you can't just find it with your eyes. You have to like feel its spirit and like grow to trust it or whatever.
And that was
it happens then. It happens again with Zangetsu, old man Zangetsu, like talking to him when he's losing to Zaraki Kenpachi. It like he learns the lesson again there. It happens when he goes to learn Bankai. It happens again. Yeah, it happens again when he learns like the Mugetsu thing. It happens again when we see young Zangetsu when like it happens so many times, and it's like Ichigo learns this lesson where it's like, oh, my sword has feelings, and like we have to trust each other more, and I can't just treat it as a tool. I got to treat it as like a family member or whatever. And like it's happening, and so it was annoying when like he goes in and then they're like, oh, the Zanpakuto are mad at you guys because you don't treat them right. And it's like, how many times does he learn this lesson? Like,
that's definitely way more apparent to you, because I remember every instance you're talking about, right? Like I remember, now that you called them to my memory, I remember every single one, but I didn't have it in my head that this is something that I've seen already, and he's constantly having to relearn this. And it's like, why is he always soul searching?
Yeah.
Why is it
like it happens every time?
Soul searching? But you know what? I blame it on Tite Kubo, who keeps giving him new identities. It's like if every arc this motherfucker is gonna find out that he's someone else, then I understand why every arc he has to soul search, because he's never the same person he was in the last arc. Like why when Yuhabak slammed him on the ground and I thought he was gonna, basically kill him, you see Ichigo just blocks it and the Blood vein activates, and it's like, bro, mind you, it looked cool as shit. Like it did look cool,
but that was like, also bullshit because first of all, big reveal, Ichigo's Quincy. Okay, cool, whatever. It was also a lie. There's a lie that happens there. Okay, and let me tell you what the lie is. He says, "Oh, it was a mistake to have the jailer attack you first.
Yes,
you blah blah blah. You attacked, and because you were surrounded with his Quincy energy."
Oh my god, it was so
bad. Your energy, like it awoken your dormant Quincy energies that were like dormant. You didn't have access to them. Being around his Ryetsu awoken them, right? And you didn't have. So Ichigo had no access to his Quincy energy until now, right? Let me tell you why that's a lie. Because a couple episodes later, you find out that Zangetsu is Yahweh, and that Zangetsu is the one that fucking has been given Ichigo his like he's been it's to say that it just doesn't make sense.
He's been technically he's been using Quincy powers.
He's been using his Quincy power the entire time. You can't say they're dormant and that they just now awoken, which is what happened. They did just now awaken, and he got the blood vein but he's been using Zangetsu the whole time, who's allegedly been you, which, by the way, you guys just made that up. There's no way he was 10 years ago, he was not Yahweh. Okay, y'all made that up.
Yeah, it is honestly wild. Also, that whole thing is, I don't really like that. I didn't like it when I read it. I didn't like the whole idea that the ultimate villain in the entire series happens to be Ichigo's Zanpakuto spirit that we've been seeing and has been helping him his entire life. And it's been helping him to help Shinigamis, which the Quincy's hate. So it's just kind of very strange how this whole thing, because Zangetsu never makes any mention of it. There's never any inclination that he's a Quincy or that he's some guy that got defeated 1,000 years ago.
I don't understand why he gets young, because there's the part where Zangetsu becomes young. Apparently, when Ichigo uses his Bankai, Zangetsu gets younger. I don't really understand why, but like the spirit that's in the spirit that's in the Zanpakuto is like the spirit from him 1,000 years ago. I just feel like it's like a really big ass pull.
It is.
It's
like multiple hearts in there and all that. It's giving me very Kingdom Hearts, and I don't like it. I don't like it because
it's nonsense. And it's also like he's been having access to Quincy power this whole time. Like
that's what he's been drawing from, and obviously his hollow powers, which he's been drawing from White as well. But we get that. We always understood, like, well, the one with the pale white skin that we see that looks like Ichigo, but just with pale white skin and looks evil as fuck with the red eyes. We got that one was a hollow. Like we completely got and accepted that. But to tell me that the other one was a Quincy is wild. Like to tell me that this entire time that other one was a Quincy and no one knew that is kind of like, all right, that is an ass pull and I will accept it. Before we completely get off of Bleach and wrap this episode up, though, it would be a crime if we didn't talk about Unohana versus Kenpachi. It was one of the main highlights of the entire season. So I want to spend some time on that. And I also want to just say, because I brought up Aizen. We got really excited. I love how Aizen only had a very brief cameo, but he's still the GOAT. Because in his brief time talking to Yuhabak, he's like, hey, I heard about you. I read about you. It's so nice that I actually get to meet you. I didn't think that this day would ever come. And they have a little conversation or whatever. And basically the whole thing is that Yuhabak wants to recruit Aizen on his squad. He's like...
Yeah, I was in the middle of saying something about this, and then I got sidetracked. Go ahead.
Yes, which we do all the time on this podcast. And I'm sure you guys are used to it, where one of us is about to say something, and then we just go completely left field and never go back to it. And that's just a part of the IMNerd podcast at this point. Like, that's just how we are. And we apologize for that, but we are who we are, right? We rant. So, yeah, Aizen is like, I reject because I don't want to help you, and you can't have two people on our level, one of them being a subordinate.
Not only that, he says some fly shit, because he says, like, you know, blah, 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 we should help. And he's like, is the Quincy King asking a Shinigami for help? And he's like, yeah, but we both want the same thing, the destruction of Soul Society. And then Aizen says, like, basically Aizen says, like the Quincy King shouldn't, he basically rejects him because he thinks the Quincy King shouldn't need Shinigami's help. Like, he's like, I think it's disgusting that you would even need my help.
Right.
Like, he says some fly shit. Like, you're the Quincy King. Like, you should be above me.
Yuhabak is like, it would take too much to try to kill you and bring you back to the castle. He's like, so fuck it, I'm just leave you here. But in that brief little interview that they had, where Aizen didn't get the job, later on you find out that Aizen put him under Kyoka Suigetsu because he thought he had more time to exist outside of the shadows that they come from, which is a rant. Apparently, they never left Soul Society. So when you were asking, like, where they come from, I think it's just complete bullshit that, like, they've just been in this, like, shadow void thing that it is a rant, okay? That entire shadow thing, where they come from, is a rant, but they get pulled back into it. Right before he's about to really kill Ichigo and kill Zaraki, he just gets like, oh, our time is running out. We have to go. Jugram Hashwell's like, yo, I'm opening the portal. We're going back to the palace or whatever. And when that's happening, Ichigo's all pissed and everything. But I think that Yuhabak recalls meeting Aizen. He says, motherfucker, in that brief amount of time that I was talking to him, he put me under an illusion and it literally warped reality. It just warped time for him. It's the same thing Sasuke did to Danzo. When Sasuke was fighting Danzo, the way he beat him is actually so crazy. He beats Danzo, who has unlimited lives, by making him believe that he added a few extra seconds to each eyeball. So basically, if every eye has 60 seconds to use Izanagi or Izanami before it closes, Sasuke just put him in it was called a simple genjutsu in the manga. Like, he put him under a very simple genjutsu, nothing crazy, nothing Tsukuyomi level, that just made him believe that he had more time so that when they actually all ran out, he still thinks that he's invincible. He tanks an attack and dies. Like, that's how Sasuke beats Danzo. So basically, Aizen, I honestly think he did it to troll, because like it doesn't really accomplish anything else, but he made him believe that he spent X amount of time with him, when in reality, he probably was standing in front of Aizen for like several hours, just slobbering.
He's sitting there, and then like all of this stuff happens. And what's funny is that we see their conversation is seconds. Like they don't have a long conversation,
Yeah.
but a ton of time passed, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Like, I didn't. So Aizen, completely chained up, locked up, sealed away, is still putting people on their Kyoku Sugetsu and just like ruining their life.
It's so good. I love that about Aizen. But yes, the other big part of this entire 13 episode arc was, and this I don't really agree with, and even when I read the manga years and years and years ago, I thought it was very strange, the whole Kenpachi idea. Like, okay, Unohana is revealed to be the first Kenpachi, and she is outrageously strong. Apparently, she used to be the most notorious criminal in all Soul Society. She was so powerful.
Also, her name is revealed to be Yachido, which is the name of Zaraki's lieutenant.
Yes, that is also very interesting, because I've always wondered if maybe his sword spirit was actually that little girl. I remember saying to myself, it seems like no one else can really interact or see her. If you go back and watch Bleach, that little girl will say things and do things, and no one but Zaraki seems to react to it. It's very rare that someone will actually interact with the little girl. And for example, in one of the movies, I think it was the movie about the memories, Fade to Black. Mm-hmm. I actually love the Bleach movies because the captains get to go fucking bonkers and there's no repercussions for it. But anyway, and I believe Fade to Black, there's a part where Zaraki is fighting against a guy, and the guy starts running when he realizes that Zaraki is too much. He literally starts to run away. And as he's running away, the little girl starts running beside him, and she's saying, "Kill him, Ken-chan! Get him!" And like, he doesn't really react to her doing that. Like, she's being a pest. He doesn't, and it almost seems like he doesn't even know, but she's like running side by side, almost it's like cartoonish, really.
Yeah.
And she has a lot of those cartoonish moments. So when they revealed that Unohana's name is Yachiro, I was like, oh shit, that's a huge reveal. Also, her being the first Kenpachi and a criminal, her, the nicest lady, the healer, she's the most notorious criminal in Soul Society's history, I think.
She was also part of she's the very first captain of the 11th squad. She was part of like Genryusai's like the first formation of the 13
the savages.
Yeah, she was one of the 13.
They show her in the flashback. She looks scary when she has her hair down and not in a braid that covers her wound from Zaraki.
They also change her art. Like, she looks
evil as fuck.
Yeah.
Her art is so wild. I actually love what they did with Unohana. Like, obviously, that is also probably a huge ass pull. But I really, really like her whole backstory. Like, I vibe with cool shit. And it's just really cool to me how they made her this outrageously powerful person. She could have been zero squad level and all this other stuff. She was the only person back in the day who knew that Aizen wasn't actually dead. I think he even says it when he sees her after his illusion is there. He says, like, you're the only person who actually saw through it. But they never fight. She's there when he invades Karakura Town in the Arrancar arc. She's there. They never fight. He doesn't really seem to care about her in particular. He doesn't name her as like a threat when it comes to Zaraki and all the people that he's like Ichigo Zaraki, Captain Commander, and stuff like that. So she always has this weird placing where we kind of ignore her too because she's just known as the healer. And then even when Captain Commander used his Bankai, he said, no matter what, you specifically stay here. Never leave the 4th Squad headquarters. And we think like, oh, it's obviously because when everybody starts getting pieced, you're going to need to heal them all. But apparently it's because if things go really left, you're going to need to train Zaraki to be stronger and all this other stuff. So there's like this whole party arc that focuses on those two and how they actually met when he was a child and she was just out killing a pile of bodies and doing her thing. And he was so strong that he gave her a wound that was really, really bad and it's permanent. But because she wasn't strong enough, he started to nerf himself during the fight.
Yeah, like she was she was the only person to fight Zaraki, and Zaraki actually had fun fighting. And he subconsciously started to nerf himself and hold back without even realizing it because he didn't want the fight to end.
Because he started
it was the first time. Yeah, it was the first time he ever had fun. So he just started. And the way they do it, there's a couple parts where they do it that does look cool. There's a part where like his head kind of drops and like his grip on his sword loosens.
Yeah.
And like she like gets offended by it and she's like can't like holy shit, like this guy is like looking down on me and
Yeah, because he's like when he's a kid, there's a really cool part where she's talking to one of her lieutenants or one of her subordinates, right? And behind her is a pile of bodies. And she turns around and was like, when the fuck did that get there?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of the pile of bodies is Zaraki. And
Yep.
he's just looking down. He looks like a savage too. He's in basically rags. And he has his katana. And he just, I guess he killed a lot of people. So they start fighting. He stabs her through like the top of her chest. And so she braids her hair to cover that for the rest of her days. But now that the situation in Soul Society has gotten so grave, she now has to train him and reawaken his powers. It's her greatest sin that she wasn't strong enough and that he became weaker because of her. It's like her greatest regret in life.
And then, so there's some cool things that happen. So first of all, I do think that essentially what happens is however Yachiro comes into be, maybe we'll talk about it more in future seasons, but I think that the reason why Kenpachi gave Yachiro that name is like he named her after the only person he ever had fun fighting.
Right.
Because as we know, like when they met, and you find in like original Bleach, when they met allegedly, like neither one had names, and like he gave her a name or whatever, and like having a name is like important and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's even a part where like after he loses to Ichigo, I think, or it might have been another part. I think it's after he loses to Ichigo and he tries to talk to his sword for the first time, and then Kenpachi reminisces on like how bad he feels that he never respected his sword to learn its name because he remembers the pain of not having a name or whatever.
Okay.
And so
That's
there's
old.
that stuff. But anyway,
So
there's a part. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. There's a part.
I was gonna say there's a part that's really cool when they're fighting. When
Bro.
they're fighting and she kills him
several
over and
times.
over again.
So
like
let's get into it. Let's get
Yeah.
into because like okay, we've done all the setup. Like she was Kenpachi or whatever. Fuck it. But the part that we're all here for, it's fucking Bleach, right? We want to see the fight. We want to see the blood. We want to see the action. This is considered the two strongest Shinigamis apparently outside of like the Zero Squad, obviously, and also outside of Aizen and Captain Commander. So clearly, even though you're the Kenpachi, I don't think that means that Zaraki at any point was ever stronger than Captain Commander. I don't think that's what it means. I think it just means that you're the strongest person who knows all these sword styles and you can fight better than most people. But like when it comes to hacks and stuff like that, I don't think that they're fucking with Aizen, with Captain Commander, with Ju.
Also, speaking of sword, apparently Yachiro means like 8,000 styles. Like that.
Well, apparently, yeah. What is it? Unohana knew every style of sword and every style of combat. So that was the thing. And then I guess he knows all of them as well or whatever. Or he's better at them than most people. But so they're fighting and she kills him several times, like Kenny said. Like that is actually what's happening. And he thinks that he's just having mental lapses. He thinks that he's
blacking out.
He's just like, am I dozing off? But the whole time he's literally fucking dying. And she learned how to be, she even says this during the fight. I learned healing styles in Keto because it was necessary for this, essentially. Like the reason why I know how to heal people so well is not for the sake of like Soul Society. And it's so cool. It's so dope the way they draw her eyes. She looks evil as hell. The hair all long and down. When she activates her Bankai and it's like a blood sword.
Yes.
And you start to see the skin melt
confused
off of their
me.
bodies.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Remember the giant like jellyfish thing that she had?
Yeah.
Was that her Shikai?
That is her Shikai, and it heals people. Why?
Because I was like, yeah. Because when she first did that, I was like, does she have two Bankais? But no, I guess that the other thing was her Shikai. But I thought maybe her Bankai had another name too. You know, everybody's Bankai has got another name.
I think because they say something. I was reading this on a thread on Reddit. After I finished the entire Bleach series, I went back and like read all of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc and stuff. I wanted to know what happened. And I did this very recently. I went into a Reddit thread and it was explaining about how Shikais and Bankais can't be too different from each other. They have to be somewhat related. You have to be able to draw some kind of line through them where it's like, okay, this makes sense. So in the manga, they did a terrible job of explaining what her Bankai was. They didn't even explain it, to be honest. She activates it. It's one panel where you see
it's just it gets bloody and it's like just I don't know what's going on.
And then
but
after that, you have no idea. Then
she's just wilding.
And then you see both of them as a skeleton. Mainly, you see Zaraki, but you do see both of them as a skeleton. And he's like, "What is this feeling? What is this sensation?" He's having these internal thoughts. And he says, like, "This is the best feeling I've ever felt in my entire existence. I don't want this to end ever." And as they're fighting and stuff like that, you don't really realize it in the manga, but they expand on it, thank God, in the anime, where you come to find out that she's healing him. Like, he's dying, and her Bankai, just like her Shikai, it heals. So it's bringing him back to life over and over again. And every time he comes back to life, he gets stronger. So much so, to the point where she's like, holy fuck. Like, at one point, he couldn't deal. Okay. The animation on this particular episode was not only episode 6, where Captain Commander fought against Yhwach, but Unohana versus Araki. The animation, there's this one part where they're fighting in that cave, and she's slashing so fast that there's just blood slashes all around her, kind of like a shield.
Yeah.
And she's advancing towards him, and literally you just see blood. It looks crazy. Like, the actual animation on that entire part, he's trying to fight back and block, and he can't really defend, so he probably gets killed a couple times right there. Oh, it's really well done. It
looks
really
insane.
Well done.
The animation is amazing. It looks kind of like the classic thing where like Ichigo like swings his sword and like knocks the shit away.
Yep.
Like, it's like a classic scene. They even pseudo recreate it in one of the scenes in this season. I forget where with Ichigo, but I don't remember. But they also, as awesome as these fights are, they reveal like basically a retcon to kind of say to explain to us how Ichigo beat Zaraki. They basically say that like in all of Zaraki's fights, he limits himself to be around the level of his opponent. That way he can have fun. And so the reason why he lost to Ichigo is because he was limiting himself. Everybody knows Zaraki's so much stronger than Ichigo, but this is why. Once again, it's cool. It's a cool retcon to a plot hole.
Yeah, because that was a major plot hole. Okay, for Zaraki to be considered the strongest Shinigami in Soul Society, essentially, and for him to lose to Ichigo, it never made sense. It never ever made sense. And then they just said, okay, well, we do have to fix this, and it's because he nerfs himself in every fight. And I'm like, okay, I have to accept.
Sure.
But yes, that entire fight, honestly, was just so well done, and it takes up a big chunk of the episode, which I liked. They didn't bullshit around. I can't really say much else about it. The animation was flawless. Her Bankai looked really, really cool. And at the end of it, the thing that I have a gripe with is that she has to die for some reason. I just don't like that. I don't like that her entire, I guess, reason for existing is to train him up to be back to where he used to be before he got nerfed by fighting her.
Yeah,
and
I don't
in
understand.
the process, she has to die. Like, she's the best healer in Soul Society.
Yeah.
And Inoue simply exists, but she has to die. You know what the problem is with Bleach as a whole? I'm going to just say it before we get out of here. Inoue exists. And Inoue simply existing makes so many things not make sense, to the point where the characters have to acknowledge it. Like, Yhwach had to say to Captain Commander, this doesn't make sense. Why do you not have an arm?
Not even Orihime, though. Like, aside from Orihime, who just is a cheater, this Kenpachi Unohana is also the greatest healer besides Orihime.
Yes.
She's the greatest healer, and want to know how great she is? She can kill you and bring you back to life. That's how fucking great she is. She can kill you hundreds of times and bring you back to life. So there's literally no reason why at the end of the fight, after Zaraki is like fully empowered again, why she can't just like, okay, patch herself back up. Now you have two Kenpachis.
Yes.
Against the
She'll just be number 2, and that's fine. But the fact that we only get to ever see her fight once in the entire series, and her one time fighting, she technically loses. It's really weird, and I just never liked it. I didn't like it back then, and I was low-key hoping that they somehow change it, even though I knew that would be such a huge change to make her live. But it just doesn't seem... It doesn't make sense.
Not that this was planned, right? Because I feel like nothing's really planned. But
yeah, I do feel
like this was planned, but many years later, many years after these chapters were written, I won't really say the contents of it too much, but a Bleach chapter came out, and allegedly there's supposed to be like he's going to restart writing Bleach again. There's another arc he's allegedly writing, and
that the whole arc thing, I'm not going to go into detail, but is that the
okay. And we might see some shit there. I don't know.
I'm hoping
I
so.
I don't know anything about it, but nobody does because it's not out yet. But
He is not
allegedly,
out. But yeah,
there's new chapters he's going to write.
I just didn't understand why one of your strongest warriors, when you're in a crisis, would need to die for the sake of another warrior. That just really didn't make sense to me when you have healers like Inoue. I would have had Inoue somewhere in the vicinity watching the fight. And the second he accomplished his goal, which is he's so strong that he could one-shot her, because that's what happened. He stabbed her in the same fucking spot and killed her this time. And like, okay, she, air quotes here, she died. Now have Inoue reject, bring her the fuck back. Because again, Zaraki doesn't use keto or magic or anything like that. He literally physically assaults you. So the wound that she got, it wasn't like when Captain Commander killed that one Stern Ritter who tried to oppose him with his own subordinates Bankai. And he said, if that's his Bankai, why is it so fucking weak then? And then
that was so hype.
And then he slashed at him. And the one slash that he did in his direction literally incinerated the guy until there was nothing left. There was literally...
Yeah, that was hype. I really liked the backstory because like episode 1, his lieutenant basically dies.
Yeah.
And his lieutenant dies, and then we get a backstory where it's like he mastered Bankai and only used it once against him, and then spent the rest of his years refining it. And then like Gen Ryusai was like, I know you're pissed right now at how weak your like he said something like, he was like, your Bankai is so much stronger than this. Like, I feel your hatred. Like, he doesn't know how to use it. And like, it was cool.
He's being shocked by it, right? Like he's completely engulfed in a thunderbolt. And he's talking absolute trash. He's like, if this is his Bankai, then why is it so fucking weak? And he just slashes one time. And I thought that was really dope. But it's like, okay, that guy, there's nothing left. So Inoue, I'm sure that she could bring him back still. But I would understand if Unohana got completely wiped out of existence because Zaraki got so strong that when he slashed at her the final time, he literally erased her. And it's like, well, there's nothing left to heal. But for him to just give her a stab wound, and for all of us to have to accept that a stab wound in Bleach of all things, where people lose actual limbs and get them back, like Grimjaw fully lost his arm and he got incinerated. Actually, that proves it right there. You can just fully bring somebody back because Grimjaw completely lost an arm and it got destroyed by Kido, and then it got completely brought back into existence by Inoue. So I'm not buying it. It's not really well written. And it's just one of the many plot holes of the entire story.
One of the things where like they have to create stakes. Like when you watch it at first, like if you just watch it, like you can just enjoy a lot of it if you're not looking for the problems. It's when you like sit down and like think about what you watch, you're like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But that's why I said the season's really fun. It looks beautiful. There's a lot of really cool shit that happens. And if you just take it as it is, it's really fun watch. When you sit down and think about it, there's a lot of shit that happens. You're like, why did that happen? Like when we did the episode 1 review, I remember mentioning like when the fucking we know them now as Stern Ritter, but like when the one guy was there and he was like, or they weren't Stern Ritter, whatever. The guy was kneeling and the guy comes in and he's like, oh good, you're kneeling to me because you know your place. And he's like, I'm not kneeling for you. And he's like, well then who could you possibly be kneeling for? And it's like, you know who he's kneeling for. It's your boss who's right there. But it's just to set up a moment for you to go, huh, oh shit, and like it's like they do things to set up moments and to build tension. But like when you think about the moments, you go, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that literally did not make sense. I forgot that happened. Where he's like, oh, you're kneeling to me. He's like, well, why the fuck would he be kneeling to you? And then you got the nerve to ask, who are you kneeling to? You know goddamn good and well who he's kneeling to. You should be kneeling to so you don't get fucking cooked. And then he gets cooked.
He gets cooked.
Yeah, that wasn't very good. But again, the shit talking, Captain Commander episode 1, when the people were like, we got in here so easily, I'm surprised there was no security. And then he turns around and says, well, because I'm here, this is the safest place in the entire Soul Society. It's like that line is crazy. And I live for shit like that.
It's also the second safest place. I've learned that the safest place is wherever Aizen is. I want to be next to him. That's where I want to be.
I mean, true. Aizen apparently can barely be killed. He's essentially immortal. His power works on Yuhabak, and you're going to find out real soon why that is a feat for Aizen. Like everything just works for Aizen essentially. Like the fact that Yuhabak is in Kyoga Suigatsu is already a rant. It is already a rant. All right. Well, before we get out of here, guys, Thank you for listening to this episode. We really appreciate it. If you want to write in and tell us your thoughts on Bleach, 1,000 Year Blood War arc, write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com, and we will read it aloud on the show and discuss it in a later episode. We do have a listener letter from Austin Cruz that we will read out at some point soon. So, Austin, we did not forget about you. If anyone else wants to write a listener letter to the show, we can put them all together as we do often and just kind of discuss them in an episode, and it'd be kind of a fun thing. And it can be on anything. Honestly, Kenny and I have discussed all types of shit. Financial advice, even though we're not financial advisors. We talked about relationship advice, even though, well, I'm not in a relationship, Kenny is, but we're not like, love gurus or anything like that either, but we still can give our own take on it because we're old men. But if you want to talk about anime, video games, The Last of Us, whatever you want to talk about, just write it in and we will read it aloud on the show and discuss it. That is one of the things that we offer on this podcast. And then we also have our Patreon account. On our Patreon, we have exclusive episodes of the podcast that are a video version. And then we also just have episodes that are not released anywhere. Like the episodes that are on our Patreon, there are several of them that are exclusive to just Patreon. We release once a month. We will be doing the January episode next week. And those episodes are up there. We also have episodes of Master and the Pupil and Two Masters that are only available on Patreon. So I believe I am up to like episode 10 of Master and the Pupil on Patreon, but I've only released a few episodes on YouTube publicly. So there's like 3 or 4 episodes on YouTube that are public of Master and the Pupil. And then there's a few Two Masters on YouTube. And then there's more episodes of that are exclusive to just Patreon. So essentially, our Patreon has a lot of exclusive content, especially now. Like, as I look at it, because I went back and tagged every single video on our Patreon. So now when you go on Patreon, you can actually look through categories. So, like, if you wanted to just watch Master and the Pupil, you can go to the tag Master and Pupil, and it will pull up all of the videos that are just that. If you wanted to look at every episode we had a Yu-Gi-Oh guest, I have a tag for Yu-Gi-Oh guests where every episode we had a Yu-Gi-Oh guest, they're right there. If you want to look for just the Patreon exclusive episodes that are only on Patreon, I literally have a tag that says Patreon monthly episode, and you can click on that and it will give you all of them that we've ever done. So it's now so much more organized, which I love. I just love organization as a type A person. So you can digest our Patreon a lot better. But
what's that? You got diabetes? What the fuck is this? I got type A diabetes. Like, why are you bragging
Shut
about
the
that?
fuck
What
up.
you talking about?
I'm a type A person.
The fuck
Not
is
type A diabetes. I'm getting out of here. Anyway,
talking about how he's missing a toe and shit. Like,
I'm done with you. I am so done with you.
Sugar.
I was having a very serious conversation with our patrons, with our listeners, and here goes Kenny derailing me as usual. All right. Anyways, so before I get out of here, let me give a shout out to the 46 people who are subscribed to our Patreon. Thank you so much. I also in the last week. Yes, I also in the last week went through our Discord because we have the IMNerd podcast Discord server, which I really love it there. But one of the things that I went through and did was I made sure that everyone's role in the Discord gets updated with what their Patreon subscription is. So if you're a main character, right, which is essentially main character is the highest tier. We only have one tier higher, but that is exclusive to one person per month. That's optional, boss. That's where you can literally come on the podcast. But mostly the highest tier is main character, right? And the main character tier has a color associated with it in the IMNerd podcast Discord. I believe it's the color red. So like you can tell people who are main characters, you can tell people who are just party members, and you can tell people who are just NPCs. And I don't say that in a derogatory way, but you can literally see it. Yeah, it's a tier system, and it's really cool that you can be distinguished that way in the Discord server. And if you, the way it works is, and I wrote this in the announcements, but if you are subscribed at any point at the main character tier for just 1 month, for example, and then you at some point go down to like, let's say party member tier or whatever, your color in the Discord, like your tier in the Discord will always represent the main character tier. So that's how that works. But I went through and made sure that everyone has their proper tier and their proper role, because some content is exclusive. Like if you're a main character, you have content available to you that is only for you. And if you're a party member, you have things that are only for party member and above. So that's kind of how it works. But yes, on our Patreon, we give shout outs to all 30 or 46 of you. Damn. It's actually 46 people active right now on Patreon, which is so crazy. But thank you guys.
It's really exciting.
It is. And we're going to keep dropping content, keep putting up exclusive content for you guys. So yeah. Anyways, Connie, Austin, Leon, Quest, Garen, Xavier, Hylian, Dimitri Barnes, Alexander Brissett, Vinny Casello, Giovanni Avalos, Alex Flamer, Henri Reynolds, CJ, WK-1, Dan Vrabel, First to Home, Dallas Fernandez, Estada Kuma, Mitchell Nels, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirdes, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, Roz Weiss, Nick Stango, Hanto, our 2-time national champion, Vincent Zen, Sarah Maria, Sunny Top Cut Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa, Jalen Haskins, Arali Melfi Slump, Kang Petty, Chris Lynn, Jeff Luang, Blake Jeffrey Smith, Connor LK, MSW2389, Edison Club, Kyle Batelho, Brandon Moore, Sugal, and Nick, our newest patron who subscribed for an entire year. Apparently, I forgot about this, but you can do a subscription for the entire year and you get a discount when you do that. I think it's like 15%. So if you subscribe for an entire year to the Patreon, you just get a nice discount and you don't have to worry about it. So Nick, thank you so much. You're our newest patron.
Thank you.
If you need a Discord link, let me know. Reach out to me if you subscribe to our Patreon. Even at the lowest tier, you get access to our Discord server and you get access to it forever. So a couple things. If you need your role updated in the Discord server, because it should be a different role because you subscribed at a different tier and maybe I just didn't notice it or whatever. Sometimes it's hard to match people's Patreon name with their Discord name because those two things aren't always exactly the same. So some of you, I literally couldn't tell based on what your Discord name was. And I need you to reach out to me or Kenny and just say, hey, I'm a main character, or hey, I'm a party member, and we'll cross-check it. We won't just do it, right? Because then anybody can just be like, well, I'm a main character, and then, you know. But we will cross-reference it with Patreon to make sure you'll give us your email address or whatever it is, because we can blatantly see them anyway. And then that will tell us, okay, yeah, you're right. You should be a main character. You should be a party member. And then we'll give you that role in the Patreon. Anyway, as I always say, do the things that make you happy. We're getting the hell out of here. That includes, doing the things that make you happy includes reminiscing on how great Bleach was with the shit talking and the action and the anime and the fact that it's back. And I'm really happy about that.
I can't wait for whenever the next season comes out.
July.
I'm looking forward. Wait, it comes out this year?
It does. It comes out July
awesome.
This year.
I'm looking forward to July. I'm looking forward to whenever Attack on Titan Season 8 Part 7 comes out.
March, I believe. And Demon Slayer.
I'm looking forward to all that. So. And damn, Demon Slayer. Yeah, we got some good shit coming out. We got a bunch of anime, all kinds of shit. And I'm looking forward to it. And yeah,
can't
what
wait.
makes me happy is reading 600 chapters of Bleach in a very short time.
Yeah, Kenny's broken. I don't know how Kenny is broken. The fact that this guy can do shit like that, I want to reread One Piece so bad. I want to do it so bad, but it is such a commitment, even though I know I will be so fulfilled and satisfied.
It's awesome.
But I just think about the time, right? Like, where does he
But you just get into it. I
know.
Where do I find the time? I'll tell you where, real quick. If you're still here, a little quick. This is where I find the time, right? I almost exclusively read Bleach at work. I was at work, and it's like whenever I would take the trash out, I would read a chapter. So I would take the trash out, read a chapter. I would go get ice, read a chapter. Whenever I went to go do something, I'd read a chapter of Bleach. I just snuck it in, and then I would read it on the way to work and on my way home from work. And yeah, I read a lot of Bleach that way.
That's a good way to do it. I mean, at work, I definitely I don't want to be working. Obviously, I'd rather just be getting paid for nothing. But it is what it is. If you can find some downtime to read stuff, that is a great opportunity. So yeah, I'm not mad.
When it's really busy, you can't do that. But
obviously,
you find your opportunities. I read a lot of Bleach that way. It was awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're getting the hell out of here. We will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.